Okay, I think we're live now. Hello everyone. Welcome to Red Cross's live event to celebrate World Red Cross Day. My name is Pinney. I'm the President of Australian Red Cross and I'm your host for today. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the lands on which we are meeting and pay respects to elders past, present and emerging. In today's session, we'll focus on humanitarian responses to COVID-19 and hear some human stories from the pandemic from some very special guests. More on them later, but I will do just a brief introduction now of just to name them and to welcome them to our live event. Judy Slatyer, the CEO of Australian Red Cross. Jacqueline de Gaillande, the Secretary General of Vanuatu Red Cross. Rhonda Hill, a Red Cross Manager for Woorabinda in Queensland. And Madame Bolormaa, the Secretary General of Mongolian Red Cross. So welcome. A big welcome, as I said, to all our speakers and a welcome to everyone who is joining us on either YouTube, Facebook or Twitter. It's good to have you here. Now, I'd also like to read to you a message from our patron, His Excellency the Honourable David Hurley, Governor-General of Australia, very supportive of celebrating World Red Cross Day in this manner. So I'll read his message. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming together today, World Red Cross Day, to discuss the humanitarian response to the COVID-19 pandemic around the world. I understand you will be hearing stories of how local action has led to global impact in the fight against the pandemic and a flattening of the curve. This local action will be important in the months and years ahead as we look at how best to utilise available resources and expertise to maximise further impact. The way forward is a topic occupying the minds of many Australians at the moment. Yesterday, I was asked by a student, how would Australia change and grow in a positive way in the wake of the pandemic? While none of us can predict the future, my response was that 3 Australian characteristics will serve us well. We're not afraid of hard work, we are compassionate, and we have the ability to take on the big challenges. The work of Australian Red Cross epitomises these wonderful Australian characteristics. To all the Australian volunteers, staff and members joining the meeting today, and to those from the wider humanitarian community, thank you for helping to make the world a better place. I wish you a productive and rewarding meeting, signed by His Excellency the Governor-General. So thank you, sir, for that. And now some housekeeping matters just to let everyone know how we're going here. This is live and we're at the mercy of technology, so hopefully everything goes our way. Our special speakers will have some interesting updates and it should prompt a great discussion, but make sure you ask your questions as we go along. And you can ask questions through the comments section on the channel you're watching. I'll do my best to get through as many of them as possible. If you have questions about non-COVID-19 related matters, we probably won't get through them in this session, but please check our Facebook page for a recent live Q&A session that Judy did on our bushfire response. And also send us direct messages through Facebook and the team will respond. Okay, so that's the housekeeping out of the way. So let's get started with the discussion. And I'd like to come first to Judy. Welcome, Judy. For those who don't know you, can you please tell us who you are and what you do?
Hi everyone, it's so good to be here as part of World Red Cross Day and to be also with my very precious dear friends from across Australian Red Cross and across the world. My name's Judy, I'm the CEO of Australian Red Cross. We work very closely with two other amazing women on this call and of course very closely with Rhonda, but Madame Bolormaa and Jacqueline, we work very closely with those in other countries around the world as well. It's a pleasure to be here, Ross, thank you for having me.
Pleasure, Judy. So how would you like to start up by summing up the Australian Red Cross response so far to COVID-19?
Well, let's just sum up the last 7 weeks as incredibly busy. We have been very focused, all Red Cross people, our staff, our volunteers, our members, thousands of people across the country supporting Australians and Australian compatriots, whatever they're doing and whatever circumstances they find themselves in. And that's meant thousands of calls to those who've been in isolation and quarantine. It's meant supporting those who are here on temporary visas or who might be in prison and not able to see family or friends. Continuing our support of the communities impacted by bushfires. We're very aware that they've had drought and then fires and now COVID-19. And of course, working with partners to deliver food and essentials. You'll be hearing some stories from Rhonda as well on other areas that we're working in, but it's been a busy time and we've been very focused on making sure Australians are supported through COVID. In addition, supporting and working with our incredible peers in the Pacific, Jacqueline being one of them, as of course they have their own COVID-19 challenges, and staying very close to New Zealand Red Cross, who learning from them, sharing from them as we are from our other Pacific peers. So busy time, but all in the power of humanity has been shining through.
Thanks, Judy. Now, a more specific question about, can you sort of give us some stories about what has inspired you and the actions people have taken to support each other?
I think what's most inspiring is so many people doing so many unique things, really focused on what their community needs, but bringing the spark of Red Cross to it. So we've had Maggie in Port Fairy who's been doing a biscuit drop, using their bikes to their mailboxes, you know, sharing a virtual afternoon teas with each other with the all-important biscuit, but also using that to touch base, check in with people on what they might need, whether it's fresh produce, etc. On the other hand, we've had Bobby, who has been working with all of his friends via Zoom to teach them about how to use Zoom, so that as they went into isolation or social distancing, they could continue to meet, to plan, to prepare, and to show each other how to support the community through this. We've had many, many examples that they come through every day. Another is Shirley, who's one of our telecross volunteers, making sure that we make our telecross calls, but then also doing a virtual baby photo competition just to connect her community. So these everyday activities, which are really about connection, community presence, really involving everybody to get through what is a really, really tough time. So it's been really terrific. Thanks for the question.
Thanks, Judy, and thanks for that entrance from stage right that we just saw behind you. So for anyone watching, and Matt, who's in the background, has told me we have people on the call watching from the USA, the Netherlands, and Thailand, as well as from Australia. So how can people watching get involved? How can they help others through the pandemic?
So wherever you are in the world, Red Cross will be there in your country supporting those impacted by COVID-19. So I really encourage you to reach out to the Red Cross or Red Crescent organisation that's in your country. Within Australia, we have much that you can do, whether it's dropping off neighbourhood cards, whether it's supporting podcasts that we're working on, whether it's making calls to those impacted. So the best way to do that is to go to redcross.org.au and just check out what we're up to and what we're doing, and then to register interest.
Okay, thanks, Judy. Now, again, has anyone got any questions for Judy? It's time for a question if anyone's got one. We might come back to you.
Shall I answer that, Ross?
Yeah, have you got that one? Good, Judy.
Yeah, so there's a question comes through around, are you guys worried that when things start to ease, things may just get worse? So, of course, that's what we're all focused on. We're very confident operating under the national plan. We think the national plan gives really good guidance. We know that there's been a ramp up in testing. We know that many people have downloaded the COVID Safe app. We will be, of course, making sure that in all of the guidance material we put out, in all of the information we provide, and in our podcasts, that we'll be sharing our thoughts on how best to participate in what we're going to call living with COVID. We can see COVID being around for at least 12 months, and we'll be living in a state of having COVID around for 12 months. So just as the characteristics that we in Australia brought to this in going into social restrictions, which was we all jumped on board, we all gave it our best shot, we really worked together for the benefit of all of us, we think by following the well-crafted plans and initiatives together that will be the same. So we're actually quite confident because Australians have responded so well, but we'll be playing our part in making sure that everybody in community has the information they need, whether they're anxious or whether they're impatient to get going.
Okay, thanks, Judy. And that question was from Dimity. So thanks, Dimity. Over to you now, Rhonda, and welcome. And Judy touched on supporting communities experiencing vulnerability in the COVID-19 response. But can you please tell us a bit about the role you play and where you are?
Okay, certainly. Hello, everybody. My name's Rhonda, and I live in an Indigenous community of Woorabinda. Woorabinda is quite isolated at the moment. We're experiencing, we've been shut down to stopping traffic from coming in and out. You can only come through if you're part of the essential services. My specific role is connected to the Domestic and Family Violence Centre within our community here. Our work, as you can imagine, is very frontline. Because we live and breathe in the community, we work outside our hours. We're pretty tight and small community. We've been working around the clock in ensuring that our elders are being looked after as well as our young mums and bubs. But the community in general is in good spirits. Red Cross has have been a very active service within our community and very highly appreciated at this time.
Okay, thanks, Rhonda. And as you were saying, it's a community of about 1,000 people. And back in March, there was a ban imposed on all non-essential travel in and out of communities you mentioned. How was that received and how have people coped in the circumstances?
Well, I can say that community is accepted of it. However, it is doing, it's really hard to watch, what's going on out there and knowing that we can't travel the 50 kilometres or we're in a totally different zone as to what the restrictions are. But however, our local council is really being supportive of the community. We've got a transfer station where family and friends can drop off food supply or winter clothes that operates through the outside the boundary that allows them to drop off on a Wednesday and a Saturday, which is mandated by all our services within the community, such as Red Cross, CQID, PCYC, and the Kathy Freeman Foundation, and Youth Services.
Some of those short names, those acronyms. Could you just spell them out a bit as to who they
Okay.
are?
I certainly can. Yunthala Services is a local community-run organisation that is elected by the community and run for the community. Central Queensland Indigenous Diversity Program is the CQID, which runs a drug and alcohol diversionary program here and supports family services as well. The PCYC, as you know, is the Police Citizen Youth Club that is run, in conjunction with the local police and police throughout Australia. The other one, the Kathy Freeman Foundation, which is an educational support within our schools. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's all.
And does Red Cross have a role in coordinating all of those activities, or are there other areas of support that Red Cross gives to the community?
Yeah, Red Cross has a really first-hand role in most of this. We host most of the meetings. We chair the meetings with support of the local mayor. So we kind of this group acts as a leadership as to anything that we can support the mayor, our local mayor, with in keeping the community spirits up. We do visits to our elders, on a daily, day-to-day service. We do shopping online. We do help with them with meat orders. We pick them up and take them to the local retail store. Anything and everything that just to keep them in, ensuring that their health and their mindset is still active and they're feeling safe.
Okay, thanks. And can you just share with us what you think is the most inspiring thing in Woorabinda that you've seen during the COVID crisis?
Just that how all the services have come together just to maintain and keep the information flowing about the COVID-19 and keep talking on our level to our people, ensuring our community understand what's happening and why we are in a shutdown and why we have these laws upon us and how best to maintain and follow them. I think that's a huge thing. However, we do struggle with the counselling and all of the outside services that normally would access us, such as mental health and things like that. But I think our community distancing barbecues that we have once a month, practicing social distancing is a huge factor in the fact of, keeping community active and alive and taking their minds off what's actually happening. There's no cases whatsoever within our community, but we're all still, very vigilant with what we can do to keep ourselves safe.
Okay, fantastic. Rhonda, can you share with us just how much at risk the community at Woorabinda is to COVID-19? Compared to the general population?
We can be really at risk because we still do have essential services, our teachers and people that live outside our boundaries, but have, of course, essential services and do come in. If the virus ever hit, we have, a high risk of elderly and people with chronic disease, and we have within our communities we have outstations that have been set up ready for anything if a case does get in. We've got supports just amongst ourselves, but we're really hoping that none of that happens.
Yeah, he's hoping that that's the case. Well, thanks for giving us that insight into life in Woorabinda, Rhonda. Terrific. Let's come now to you, Jacqueline, and a big welcome once again. Please tell us who you are, what you do, where you are, and all of that. Over to you.
Thank you, Ross, and hello, everyone. It's a pleasure for me to meet with all of you. I'm Jacqueline de Gaillande. I'm the Secretary General of the Vanuatu Red Cross Society for the last 12 years. And as all of you know, we just went through not only the threat of the coronavirus, but also TC Harold. Yeah.
So thanks, Jacqueline. Can you tell us a bit about Tropical Cyclone Harold? You know, we had a lot of, in Australia, we had a lot of news on COVID-19 at the time, and I'm not sure that we got that much exposure to the devastation that it wrought. So can you just describe that to us, please?
Yes, Ross, thank you for that. Tropical Cyclone Harold just struck Vanuatu on the night of the 6th or 7th April, and it happened while we were all locked down, which means that for us, we were already on a state of emergency from the coronavirus, and we had to wait until we could reopen the traffic between all the islands, and that happened on the 10th. And on the 10th, we were on the move going to the provinces by boat because the plane could not reach the place. And it was a very challenging time. We had in the four provinces that were suffering from the strike, and it was difficult for us because lots of the boats were on the beach or on the reef, so not much means of transport. And also the fact that we could not move the next day after the cyclone strike in the islands, it was very hard because we could not have any communication. We do know at that time what happened to our people in the provinces. So we had to rely on aerial assessment done by the army directly from New Caledonia. So they just come along, make the survey, and then return to New Caledonia and share with us all the pictures. So we assume through the pictures what was happening there. And the fact that we could not reach all the people on communication, we do not know exactly what's happened, was very hard for us because we were here ready to be deployed and could not move until the 10th. By having said that, I will also add that somehow the fact that our borders are still closed, it's obliged us to stand by our own, and somehow it's a good exercise for the country to not rely on people from outside to come and do the work for us. We had to do it ourselves, and I can tell you. Despite all what we hear, because there are always people who are not happy, the NDMO and all the NGOs and Vanuatu Red Cross, we did very well. And now, what happened now is we are still in emergency response 1 month after, because there are still places that we cannot reach. We have to climb hills in the bush, through a landslide, through lots of things. We have mosquitoes everywhere. We have dengue fever. We have diarrhea, and it's an accumulation of disaster, one after the other one. And when we reach further and look at other community in remote places, we find that there's more and more things to do. But Vanuatu people are very resilient, so they manage to replant their crops and manage to wait for us, and they are also joining the teams. And I can tell you, if there is a highlight today that I would like to share with all of you, is the commitment of our volunteers. Might in others country it's different, but for us, when we are in the bush and we have the volunteers carry on the NFIs, and the shelter kits are very heavy. They have to carry that on their back, and when they come late at night, there's nobody to prepare food for them, so they just go and they sleep wherever they are. And most of the time they come and say, Madame SG, do you know that last night I sleep on the back of the back rise because it was the safe place to stay for the night. So I smile, but I would like to cry. So it's so emotional, and I would like to say thank you for all those who sent all those NFIs, all those relief items. Of course, we need you, and financially we need your support. While I'm so proud to say that in terms of responding in human resources, our country, our people are doing very well. And also we are actually since last year, the government, the authorities, they are in the process of decentralization, which means we have to give power to the provincial governments to be able to manage their province by themselves. And this was a good exercise, because now the NDMO in the capital asked all the provinces authorities to set up their own, what they call PEOC, which is Provincial Emergency Operation Centers, and it happened. And they also allow Red Cross to be sitting in that PEOC place to help them. So we are very closely working with the NDMO. But once again, we are far from recover.
Right. Thanks for that, Jacqueline. It's great to hear that Vanuatu Red Cross has played a key role in the response. Can you talk a bit about preparation, disaster preparation? How well was the preparation this time? And do you think that had an impact on how you were able to respond, given that this is the second Category 5 cyclone that's hit Vanuatu in the last 5 years?
I cannot hear you. Sorry. Can you repeat the question?
If you can read those questions, this is wonderful technology, folks, for everyone watching. There is a question from Fifi we could go to if Jacqueline can't hear. Matt, I don't know if you can highlight that or something. How did you, Jacqueline, how did you manage social distancing during Tropical Cyclone Harold?
Coronavirus, we were already doing a lot of awareness, and the social distancing was already in place, and also washing your hands. There was a lot of awareness about this before the cyclone struck. So we were well prepared on that. But then when we had to move and respond to the disaster, it is where it was becoming complicated. And I can tell you, our people here in Vanuatu, they are very concerned about the coronavirus. I can tell you, when they hear the first plane doing that aerial survey, they was all panicking and say, are they coming here? They're coming from overseas. They will bring us the coronavirus. And we had to say, no, they were not landing. They will just go do the survey and return. So there is a lot of fear here. People are very, very concerned, and they are afraid of that. So social distancing, I can tell you, it works.
That's good. And another question about the preparation. How good was the preparation this time, and did it help in your response?
The preparation for the response, we were well prepared here. I will say in the capital, we have warehouse where we can support 800 households. We have a warehouse on the Gaillande. It's the other big islands in the Sanma province, where we had in the warehouse to support 400 households. And also in each province, we have small amount of stock already ready for deployment. After that, the issue was to reach the communities, because we have lots of villages that are so far, they are really remote, and to reach them is quite complicated. But for most of those villages, we did it. We went there, and like I say, volunteers carry on their back all those NFIs. And yes, we were prepared by the means of having already the stock on the ground. But we also receive a lot of support from Australian government, New Zealand governments, but also the French government, they keep sending NFIs, they keep sending disaster relief by boat, because for cargo it's open. And when it's arrived in Port Vila, what is stopping us is, like I say, lots of the little boats that we have. They all on the reef. They're all on the beach. They're damaged. So there is a bit of constraint here. So things are happening. I will say a bit slow in regarding the need, but it's happening. And the preparation, like I say, eventually with all the way that people are, Rhonda, the way that people are having their houses, it's most of the time it's cultural way to build their houses, and it blows away at first thing. The first set of winds, everything's left.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you, Jacqueline, for giving us such a great view of what's happening after Tropical Cyclone Harold in Vanuatu, and how that's intermingled with the COVID-19 response and the challenges with social distancing, and the challenges you've still got before you in terms of responding and recovering from the cyclones. So we wish you all the best with that, and I'm sure Australian Red Cross will continue to support you in the best ways that we can, given that we're still in lockdown and borders are closed. Can I move on now to Madame Bolormaa, please? Welcome, Madame Bolormaa, once again. And again, could you please tell everyone who you are, what you do, and where you're joining us from? Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And my name is Bolormaa. I'm Secretary General of Mongolian Red Cross Society. I'm working as a Secretary General for last 5 years. Mongolian Red Cross is very close partner with Australian Red Cross. And the Mongolian Red Cross is national humanitarian organization, and the Mongolian Red Cross is auxiliary to government on disaster preparedness, response, and recovery. And last 4 months, we are facing 2 challenges. First challenge, it was a Judy disaster. Judy is very harsh winter. Now, until now, in some provinces in western part of Mongolia, also snowing. In Mongolia, we have 4 seasons and a very harsh and very cold winter in Mongolia. And in January, February, March, some provinces of Mongolia affected by Judy. Judy is Mongolian main disaster, harsh winter. During the harsh winter, Mongolian Red Cross organized a disaster response, and we provided cash distribution to hoarders, and also food parcel and animal food kits, animal kits. It was Mongolian Red Cross response activities during the harsh winter. Second, now we are facing new challenge. This is coronavirus. And Mongolia is located between Russia and China. First, outbreak of coronavirus is very high in China, and also now situation of outbreak of coronavirus is very high in Russia. Now, Mongolia is like sandwiched between 2 big coronavirus affected countries. And now the Mongolian government is enhancing measures to prevent coronavirus infection. Started all prevention activities and quarantine started from end of January. And as of today in Mongolia, 41 confirmed cases reported. Now, all these cases, it was imported from overseas. Many Mongolians living, study, and visiting other countries for medical treatment. And now we started to receive Mongolian citizens from Wuhan, from China, and from different countries. Nowadays, also Mongolian students who study in Russia now coming to back home, and so many very high risk of coronavirus outbreak in Mongolia. No schools, universities, public events are closed and prohibited since end of January and until end of May. Now, why Mongolian government is providing very strong policy on isolation and quarantine? Because we have still very high risk from two big neighbors, and all Mongolian border units closed, and is a result of very strong isolation policy and quarantine policy. Now we are facing new problems. We have social and economic negative impact from all these activities. And Red Cross, Mongolian Red Cross, has been distributing coronavirus awareness and situational update posters and stork and videos through social media. First, in the beginning, Mongolian Red Cross focused on preparedness and dissemination of new information on coronavirus and on preparation of volunteering in health emergencies. And now, beginning of March, Mongolia started, we have coronavirus cases. And now we are focusing on containment, on response. And Mongolian Red Cross, we updated Red Cross contingency plan on outbreak of coronavirus. And with support of Australian Red Cross, Mongolian Red Cross volunteers are being trained to provide psychosocial support, to distribute, to communicate with people who is staying in home-based isolation. Now we have about 410 very active volunteers in coronavirus response. And now many families, they have many challenges, lack of food supply. And now in Mongolia, is a result of 3 months isolation and quarantine activities, and many private companies, entities closed, and unemployment is increasing, poverty is still a problem in Ulaanbaatar city. And Red Cross is focusing on food distribution, and also we're working with government, with Australian Red Cross, with other UN Children's UNICEF. We're working together. Now we are assisting about 3,000 vulnerable households with food parcels, and about 400 households we are distributing hygiene set. Because in Mongolia, in Ulaanbaatar capital city, 1/3 of Mongolian population living in Ulaanbaatar, and very high risk of infection of coronavirus. And first, we are distributing hygiene set, and also now we are going to open mobile hand wash station. During the cold season in January, February, March, no, it was impossible. Now in Mongolia, getting warm and also extremely changing weather, during the warm season, Red Cross will open mobile and temporary hand washing station like this. And also, Mongolian Red Cross is member of State Emergency Commission at national and local levels. And nowadays, last 3 days, we have simulation exercise on coronavirus response. we selected one district of Ulaanbaatar and 2 provinces in Mongolia, and we have table discussion. And also yesterday we provided some quarantine in Chingilte district of Ulaanbaatar, and we have some simulation exercise. Now, why? We are learning by doing. This coronavirus, it was very new virus for everyone, for world, and new pandemic. And before Mongolia, during the cold season in November, December, January, for last 3 years, we affected by influenza. Also in Ulaanbaatar city, we had very strong air pollution. It's a result of government very strong program. For last winter, step by step, air pollution is changing. Now, during the air pollution, influenza outbreak of influenza, it was very, very high. And last 2 years, we working together with the Australian Red Cross on influenza response, and we prepared it before about 300 volunteers who can work during the influenza. And also we prepared many handbook and IC materials on influenza response, and now we move it from influenza response activities to COVID-19 response activities. Thank you very much to Australian colleagues and friends to learn. We learned a lot from this influenza response pilot project, and now we have very strong, good teaching materials on coronavirus and influenza virus in Mongolia. No, influenza, it was 2019, 18 is very, very high. One third of family, 1/3 of school children infected by influenza. And last influenza finished, it was in beginning of January, and then we meet the coronavirus infection. Now we have a new contingency, updated contingency plan of coronavirus, and we have 3 steps of response activities. And now Mongolian Red Cross is focusing on dissemination of information, and to teach public people, vulnerable group of people, how to prevent from coronavirus, how to wash hand, how to use face mask, everything. And also we have several teaching materials for pregnant women and for mothers, for older people, for different group of population. We prepared a handbook and the dissemination IC materials in Mongolia. Now we're waiting for new activities, mass testing. Unfortunately, Mongolian Ministry of Health and other medical organizations only working with infected people. Other population, we have a strong interest in voluntary testing, mass testing in coronavirus. And we will working together with the NEMA, National Emergency Management Agency, and the Ulaanbaatar Department of Health. And in June, we will start mass testing in some places of capital city. And learning by doing, every day also we have a big sensation how to prevent the public from wrong information. Also, Red Cross is working with Mongolian National Broadcasting, and we have also some TV, educational program for population. This is Red Cross activities, and also Chinese Red Cross, Inner Mongolian Red Cross branch is helping us. For example, today we have received ambulance from Inner Mongolian government. This is a special ambulance car with negative pressure. during the coronavirus outbreak. Chinese medical, some companies produced new ambulance, and this ambulance especially made to transport patients during the COVID outbreak. No, this is Red Cross support to Mongolian health sector. We're working together. Now, this simulation exercise nowadays, 3 days, this is very useful for us because we don't have any good practice, good knowledge how to respond COVID-19, because it was we didn't touch, and very difficult virus and working. And also Red Cross distributed face masks and hand sanitizers and personal protection equipment and beds, blankets and mattresses for government agencies to provide simulation exercise, and Red Cross is helping them. Also, we now in the future we need to pre-stock. Yeah, we will update our pre-stock and work in this. Learning by doing, and every day asking from inner Mongolian Red Cross how to work during the like this, and Chinese Red Cross, they have a strong experiences from last 3 months, and we are sharing information. Okay, thank you.
That's fantastic. Thank you for that wonderful update on what Mongolian Red Cross is doing and what's happening in your country, Madam Bolormaa. That was great. Thanks. I've got some feedback from our audience here. A lot of people are saying how emotional they're feeling listening to what our speakers have been saying, and how very impressed and grateful for your efforts that your speakers they feel. So that's great feedback for you. And I'll comment from one of our members, in Australia, who you might know, Aurelia. She says it's wonderful to hear how active Mongolian Red Cross Society has been in the COVID response, and that Australian Red Cross and the Mongolian Red Cross's partnership continues. It's been going for a long time, and it's wonderful to see that it's still going. So we're very happy about that and pleased to see that you're doing such a great job with your team over there, Madam Bolormaa. So thank you very much. Now I have a question for Rhonda, and it's a question about, it's from Fifi and Mishi, and it's about lockdown. Rhonda, how are you using digital communications more? Now, I'm just seeing here that Rhonda's dropped off for the moment, which is a problem. So maybe we'll have to park that question and come back to Rhonda if she comes back online. Or what I'm going to do is throw to Judy, because I'm sure Judy will be able to give us a good answer on what's happening in Woorabinda. Are they using digital communications more while they're in lockdown, or are they stuck on Zoom a lot? Is there a community radio station?
Yeah, so I don't know the specifics of Woorabinda, but I do know that across the country, Australian Red Cross and the people who we're supporting and walking alongside have moved very quickly to digital technology in all sorts of ways, but also for those who aren't able to access digital technology, working really hard to try to be there alongside them anyway. So to just give you a few examples, we've in Coffs Harbour, in a program for those who are seeking asylum in Australia, they have reached out. They've had to stop their regular community catch-ups, but they've reached out through FaceTime and others to every single member of the community, all those who are seeking asylum and refugees, because they're very tricky times. Plus, we've been able to provide support online in 18 different languages. So it's been really actually interesting to see how many more people we can reach and how many more people we can support in their own languages by using digital technologies. Community radio is also another important part, as mentioned in one of the questions. And in fact, we are in discussions with community radio across Australia on how do we best support them to keep supporting their communities. On the other hand, for example, in one of the prisons where we've been working with those in the prison to build up their first aid and their Red Cross volunteering credentials, they were able to use those experiences on their own to actually help the prison become really safe. So they really got into gear to help the prison be clean, to help people with social distancing, to help people understand what was needed. And they were able to do that because they'd had Red Cross training in the lead up to COVID, which we never knew it was going to be used for COVID, but it was a really good example. So yes, very strongly on digital technologies, reaching out to communities, engaging in different ways, finding new people, being able to participate in different languages, but also still there's a need for physical support. And in many isolated communities, such as Rhonda's in Woorabinda, or for example, in a prison, it's the existing volunteers in situation who are doing tremendous work for the communities around them.
Thanks, Judy. And one last question for you, if that's okay, from Linda. Have you seen an increase in demand for the services that Australian Red Cross provides due to the increased stress financially and emotionally that people are feeling?
Yes, definitely. We have actually seen a sharp and rapidly sharp increase in people's levels of anxiety and need for support. So that is why, in fact, we launched COVID Connect, which is a service that any Australian can access to just have a chat, to talk to a volunteer using psychological first aid training, but also it's Australians talking to Australians to help them through this. We also work closely with Lifeline and others so that we can make referrals if needed, but you're absolutely right, Linda. It's quite a sharp increase in the number of people feeling anxious, and not just anxious about what's happened in the last 7 weeks, but also a bit anxious for what does the next year look like and how do we navigate that, which is what we'll be spending a lot of time on, supporting people. Okay,
thanks, Judy. That's probably a good point for us to bring the session today to a close. We've been going for about an hour. Which is a pretty good time. I think it's been really interesting. And I wanted to say a huge thanks to our speakers today, to Judy and Rhonda and Jacqueline and Madam Bolormaa for taking the time to participate in this session today. It was lovely to hear from each of you and for most of you for me to see you again. It's always wonderful to be part of the Red Cross family on an international level as well as nationally within our own countries. And it was great to see the participation from the audience too, and to see the breadth of listeners we've had on the call from many countries around the world. So thank you to everyone for joining us today, whether you're on YouTube, Twitter or Facebook. We look forward to bringing you more of these kinds of communication sessions. And once again, I'd like to wish everyone a happy World Red Cross Day. I hope you enjoyed this session. Thanks once again to our speakers. Thank you very much. Goodbye.